Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Neil Howard, here on Health Professional Radio. Thank you so much for joining us today. Despite the widely recognized benefits of point-of-care ultrasound, fewer than 40% of rural counties here in the United States can offer residents any access at all. Our guest this evening, Mr. Kevin Goodwin, founder and CEO of EchoNous, is joining us to discuss how the company is closing this gap by developing powerful, handheld ultrasound at the point of care, having developed a tool that's capable of producing diagnostic-quality images paired with AI guidance. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Kevin. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Neil. Happy to be here.
Well, tell us a bit about yourself, if you would, and then let's jump right into this handheld ultrasound.
Well, sure. I'm a 35-year veteran of the ultrasound imaging market space. I started back in July of 1987. Spent 11 years working on large-scale ultrasound that was used by radiologists and cardiologists, and then eventually founded a company that was a spin-off in 1998 called SonoSite, which created point-of-care ultrasound by miniaturizing and simplifying the hardware. And that company grew to about $300 million, was sold for about $1 billion, but it spawned this new market space, which today represents 35% of the global ultrasound market, which in total is $8 billion. If you go back to 1998 when SonoSite was founded, global ultrasound hardware sales were about $2.8 billion. Today, they're $8 billion, and more than a third of that is point-of-care sales, which is rapidly rising because there's far more opportunity, far more user nodes out there in that proverbial network. And then in 2016, after leaving the SonoSite experience, I founded a new company called EchoNous, which is Greek for intelligent ultrasound. Now, in this company, what we've done is we've dramatically reduced the size and cost of high-quality ultrasound. Mm-hmm. And we've done something that's been unprecedented in our industry, which is make small ultrasound really, really good and fully functional, which has never been accomplished. But also, we've paired that with the use of AI, in particular deep learning. And what deep learning does is enable the new user to learn how to use the machine easier and faster and become more competent. The typical applications of people that want to use ultrasound in the point of care, basically, which means, at the patient bedside or at the patient side, wherever they may be, mm-hmm. are looking at the heart, assessing heart function, looking at the abdomen, looking for abnormalities or looking for fluid, looking for kidney or liver problems, looking for aortic aneurysms, things of this nature, looking at the female body for pregnancy, ectopic pregnancy, and then looking more superficially at musculoskeletal problems and doing injections. So what we're doing is using AI to make the novice, the new user, experience an easier journey toward proficiency and competence and confidence. And so what we've done is we put a set of algorithms on the hardware, what we call the trio, which when you're imaging the heart actually labels the heart anatomy so you understand what you're looking at right away, tells you how to maneuver your probe, and also grades your image. And once the image grade is green, it grabs the image and tells you to rotate your angle to get a second view. And once you do that, all of a sudden you've accomplished something that has been done for years in echo labs, which is a very accurate systolic heart function, which is also known as the ejection fraction. This is a vital parameter on how well the left heart is pumping. So we've accomplished that with best-in-class AI, and yet a piece of hardware that has been compared on over 4,000 patients with much larger machines, and it's been found to be equal both in imaging and Doppler measurements. Doppler is something I'll explain later. But we have a research site set up in Greece because my co-founder is Greek. And so what they've done is compared the machine on day-to-day patients with no patient selection in acute care where you have your sickest patients, and they've compared the machine with larger machines. They've compared the algorithmic accuracy for the ejection fraction, other things. They've compared the Doppler accuracy, and we've come out even. We have an increasing number of white paper and research study results that are being accepted and published. So we're very excited.
Talk about rural counties here in the United States having a lack of access to this type of technology and some of the problems that lack of access creates.
Great question. So ironically, in America, however affluent we may be, the majority of cardiologists, for example, have gone to the cities where the patients are the greatest. So if you take a rural city, I live out here in Seattle, take Olympia, which is our state capital. It can take 2 weeks to 2 months to get a patient to get an echo, which is the ultrasound of the heart, and then get the results back. So if you're a primary care internist and you want your patient to find out if they have any problems with their heart, You got to schedule it. That'll take 2 weeks to 2 months, and that the outcome will come in 2 weeks to 2 months. Why? Because there's no cardiologist around to read or take care of the patient's needs immediately. So we've had in America a consolidation of health systems that have created, I think, largely urban-centered health systems, not entirely, but rural health in America is an unusual layer. Rural health is defined one way by how America is looked at in terms of its geographic distribution or demographic distribution. You have urban, you have suburban, and you have sub-suburban. And then beyond sub-suburban is rural. So rural represents, I think, 20% of the population, but 13% of the doctors. And then when you're out there in rural healthcare, the choices are, do I drive a long distance to get the test I need? Do I have the time and the money to pay for the test? So we've been working with physicians only recently in the rural healthcare space who have been very excited about being able to have, most importantly, a low-cost, high-quality ultrasound tool that is, basically has been benchmarked against much larger machines and found to be equivalent. But also the AI, and then we also provide training. We've pioneered something else in addition to hardware and AI, which is task-based echo or task-based training, where we teach a novice, whether it's a doctor or a physician assistant, a nurse practitioner, RN, how to use an ultrasound probe to get data out of the body. And we teach it as a task, not as a process or a skill or a certification. Once they do that, what they're able to do is pump that data into algorithms that produce all the outcomes that a doctor would need right now. For example, if you look at what an ultrasound of the heart involves, it's called an echo. A full and complete echo involves 23 parameters. So in rural America, it's not unusual to wait 2 weeks to 2 months to get that done. In primary care, you can use the machine. You can extract the data from the heart, whether it's a doctor or someone else in the practice that we may have taught. All you need to do is get the data out of the body. And then what happens is that's pumped into the algorithms that we have in our machine learning tool. And you get a full echo produced in a matter of 3 minutes. And this could be transformational, not just in rural primary care, but then you have to think about the different disease problems that pervade society around the world. The two biggest ones are heart failure, which everybody ultimately gets when they die of a heart problem, and then valve disease. And those are two problems that a machine like ours with our AI portfolio can pick up even before the symptoms are present. And what we know about heart failure, which is the biggest cause of hospitalization in the world for the elderly, is that if you detect it earlier, you can put the patient on drugs and keep them out of the hospital. And the same thing is true in valve disease. The so-called disease of our generation is called aortic stenosis, your aortic valve malfunctions. Our machine can pick that up with relative straightforward imaging paired with AI. So what we have here is an unprecedented solution for healthcare at large, but in rural healthcare, we're a very good fit. So we're trying to increase our awareness out there, and we're running clinical studies and trying to do everything we can to make people aware.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Give us a website where listeners can learn more.
Yeah, one of those would be www.cosmos, K-O-S-M-O-S, platform.com. So Cosmos is the name of our hardware platform. So it's cosmosplatform.com. The other is www.EchoNous, which is ECHONOUS.com. That's our company website. So those are the two ways to learn more, or you just reach out to us and we'll provide some education.
Great. Kevin, thank you so much for lending us some of your time this evening. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you for your time, Neil.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Listen in, download at SoundCloud, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.